Here. Oh, it's starting. Yeah. So I'll introduce us.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess we can get started. It's 10 o'clock on the dot. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the Kentucky State Poetry Society Annual Conference, our 2024 conference. This morning we will have our Fil-Am reading to celebrate Filipino-American History Month. So I'm really excited to have some Fil-Am writers join me. I feel like when I was like a kid, I couldn't imagine that there would be like more Fil-Am Kentucky writers, and it's like so nice to like have a little gathering and celebrate. Um, so thank you all for being up early in the morning. I guess it's not super early, but for a poetry reading, it's like an early kind of thing. I guess I need to let's see, introduce everybody and probably myself. So my name is Danny Quintos. I am the president of the Kentucky State Poetry Society. This is my final weeks, months as president. And I've been working with KSPS for 4 years. This is my fourth conference, being in charge of it. And I really wanted to make sure that we are celebrating Fil-Am History Month with KSPS and celebrating, like how diverse the Commonwealth is in our literary community. And I'm so glad that you all can join us. So let's see. This is the Welcome and Fil-Am reading featuring me, Danny Quintos. We also have Marianne Chan, Minda Honey, and Nina Tay. Thank you all. Good morning. So we're gonna good morning. We're gonna start off with Nina, and then Minda, and then I'll read, and Marianne will close us off. And I will introduce and read each writer's bio before they read. So we are gonna start off with Nina Tay, and let's see. So Nina Tay has received a Silver Key Award in poetry from the Art Academy of Cincinnati. She is a student at Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in Lexington, Kentucky, and a finalist candidate for the Lexington Youth Poet Laureate. So thank you, Nina.
I thank you so much for inviting me to read. It's like you said, it's really cool like knowing there's so many other Filipino-American writers just in Kentucky, and it's an honor to be able to read with everyone. Um, I'm currently a senior at Dunbar High School, and it's like been kind of busy with like college apps and stuff. So poetry is like a great way for me to like unwind and like kind of put my feelings out there during this time that's like a little bit stressful and unsure when like looking at my future steps. So the first piece I'm going to read is titled A Few of the Many Reasons Why I Cannot Write About Love. 1. Inflorescence. This is how I will choose to remember summer. The sun caressing the daisies that grew on our backs, pollen dusting the tips of our fingers, and ivy wrapping around intertwined hands. We are knee-deep in mud and breaking out into clustered blooms of giggles, and in the spur of the moment promise to never fall in love. Our short-lived infinity is tucked away in a seed packet. 2. Equinox. On September 21st, you introduced me to autumn, but I have already heard the rumors. How he smells like cinnamon and pumpkin spice, how he waits by the door until you are safely inside, and how one look from this bright-eyed boy will leave you too entranced by falling leaves to realize that with one hand, he has you in between his index finger and thumb, and with the other, he silently pushes summer out the back door. 3. Infatuation. One look at your face, and I'm almost certain that you're a goner. The boy you swear you're not in love with smiles, and I watch desperately as you unravel and try to gather yourself back together. I want to tell you that some promises are allowed to be broken, and we were fools for thinking it could just be the two of us forever. Yet you are still attempting to fix something intangible with a bottle of glue. And at this point, I don't know who I'm trying to console. You, the girl who still refuses to let herself fall in love. Or me, the girl who knows you already have. And it turns out that I am still a fool for thinking that I will be able to prevent the inevitable and that our friendship is enough for you to stay. 4. Interlude. Two ravens are perched on a picket fence. The October sun is burning off the ink from their feathers, and the wood is rotting out from the inside. I want to ask if companionship is worth it if it hurts that much, but I am too terrified of your response to gather any words. One of the birds flies away, an answer to an unspoken question. 5. Insomnia. In my recent dreams, you are the ever-changing ocean, and I am sitting cross-legged on the shore, patiently waiting for you to make up your mind as you keep drawing me in, then pulling away. On the worst nights, I sit on the verge of falling asleep and wonder who taught you how to break a heart. You are my favorite nightmare. 6. Eulogy. Whenever I try to write about love, all my poems center around this image. Two lovers conjoined at the waist and a desperate shadow, always wanting more than what is possible for her to have. I cannot write about love, because when I try to, all I think about is the promise you broke, and how I am still so afraid. Because how could I let myself fall for someone the way that you have? And how could I ever end up wanting to break your heart? Tell me why I should disregard our eternal summers when the word soulmate still reminds me of you. Thank you. The second piece is called Loving, Losing, and Letting Go in 5 parts. And it's about like a friendship breakup I had with someone who was really close and meant everything to me and kind of still does. 1. Last October, or a year and a half after you didn't say goodbye, I walked to the park and watched a little girl perched on the edge of a swing, legs flailing as her friend told her to jump. For a while, I could not understand why she kicked harder instead of making a choice to fly. But now, I know the truth, because I was no better than that child, forever stuck in your orbit and perpetually swinging until you finally had to scream at me to let go. 2. Consider this scenario. You are an observer. You watch your best friend grow up, chip-tooth smile and lanky limbs, twirling together through endless flower fields. Make a promise to last forever. Watch her grow up through late-night sleepovers and study breaks at a cafe. She gets a boyfriend and you watch as he tears her apart, then reach out to stop it. But she tells you to remember your place. You are just an observer. She calls you late at night and her words are incoherent, piling on your back until the weight of them forces you asleep, nightmares about blurred out faces and red pulling down her arms. But your existence as a friend is only to observe, and you are trying your best to help, but now she's not the same and you haven't spoken in weeks. And after all this time, one day, you find out that she blames you. Because you are an observer, you cannot find it within you to muster up the words for an apology, nor can you figure out why she is insistent on pushing you away. So you do what you have always done. Watch as you let her walk away. 3. Is it possible for emotions to have any kind of delay? Is it possible to go this long without regretting a decision, and then suddenly miss and want you so badly a year later? If not, then maybe I am an anomaly, and maybe you were right. My heart is only able to love others when it is convenient, and you were always the one I reached to first. However, if you were wrong, then there really was no one I loved more than you. 4. I thought I was certain of many things, but until the aftermath, I never knew longing until it stared at me with the face of a worn-out girl who kept confusing friendship with devotion and mistook my love for guilt, who held me so close that she ended up letting me go, then ended a decade of friendship by walking out without a goodbye. And maybe we will never figure out whose fault it was, how you were so hurt that you couldn't help but accidentally hurt me, or when I finally realized that I could never really help you. But sometimes I still see your face when I walk home from school, when I absentmindedly doodle in class or chew on the inside of my mouth. I laugh a certain way, and you are there. Maybe you always will be, and we can keep the promise we made so many years ago. 5. Two girls are playing on a swing set. One is pushing the other, and they giggle every time the swing goes up again. The girl on the ground calls for the other to jump, but she does not flail her legs, nor does she grip the chains harder. Instead, she points to the empty swing on her right. Last weekend, after I came to terms with the fact that you never said goodbye, I walked to the park and watched two girls swing into an endless tomorrow. Thank you. So these next two poems explore more of like the cultural aspect of what it means for me firstly to be Filipino because I can't speak Tagalog and I've never even visited Asia. So this first poem entitled Thoughts on Long Distance explores a bit of I don't know how many miles it is from Lexington to the Philippines, but it's a lot. So it's easy for me to feel a bit untethered, I think is the right word, from that culture since I've never figured out what like it actually is like being there. My grandpa died last week. I don't know the exact details, but in my head, he took his last breath in an empty room. And when his heartbeat fizzled out completely, no one was there to hold his hand and say goodbye. How am I supposed to grieve someone if I never even knew them in the first place? He had 17 years to make amends. Even if he wasn't there for my mother's wedding or her graduation, he could have been there for my first steps, my first days of school, my recitals, achievements, and failures and heartbreaks. He could have made sure that when he died, there would be someone to mourn him. But maybe he lived too far away, and the thousands of miles erased me from his existence. I know this feeling all too well, because my grandpa died a week ago, and you still haven't called me back. When I was 17, I fell in love, and I thought you did too. Back then, I wanted nothing more than to stay in the summer days forever, drinking up the sunlight on each other's skin, sitting on the roof of your car and counting the stars in the sky, singing along to our song after you leaned in to kiss me on the freeway. When you said goodbye, you promised you wouldn't forget. But distance continues to prove my insignificance, because my grandpa never cared, and for you, it was never love. Because I know that if it was me, even if the distance seemed too far and my time was already stretched too thin, I would fight sleep if it meant I could talk to you for just 5 more minutes. I would beg the earth to stop spinning for a moment if I could just have one more second. My grandpa died 7 days ago, and every day since then, I've only cried over the fact that you never called. Thank you. This final poem is called Magandaka, and it explores a bit the language barrier between me and my grandma. So I have some phrases in this poem that are in Tagalog, but they're all asked like translated because of my mom. So if I like stumble over them, I apologize. But that's just more of like this language barrier that I have. Maganda ka. You tell me I am beautiful in your native tongue, but then make me promise to never forget these words, as if they will act as the only tether between me and the culture I can never be a part of. Maganda ka. You are beautiful. Mamang, I have to ask, will teaching me one phrase make me whole? Is it a blessing to have at least some sense of connection, or a curse that will forever leave you wanting more? By knowing the meaning of these words, I can finally understand how you feel about colorful barot saya, or the rosary you hold tightly during prayers. But Mamang, no matter how much I strain my ears, I will never be able to understand how desperately you want to go home. Maganda ka, pero hindi sapat yun. You are beautiful, but that is not enough. Mamang, what about me do you find beautiful? Light skin that has never met the rays of an unforgiving sun, unweathered hands that cannot skillfully separate the meat and bones of milkfish, or lips that are only able to form a single word in Tagalog. Mamang, look me in the eyes and tell me what do you find so maganda about your whitewashed granddaughter? Maganda ka, pero sa akin hindi. You are beautiful. but not to me. Maganda, you made me promise to never forget. And Mamang, I've spelled it out, I've chanted it, I've repeated it ritualistically in my head almost 1,000,000 times, but the 8,000-mile difference is too large. Mamang, often I wake up from nightmares of a rising ocean sweeping my words away, and immediately look up the phrase, grasping onto the computer as if it was my only lifeline. Mamang, sometimes I cannot help but entertain the possibility that one day I will forget that my grandmother used to call me beautiful. Maganda ka, pero nawawala ka. You are beautiful, but slipping away. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nina. That was incredible. And yeah, I remember
Thank
some of
you.
those poems from reading with you at the Carnegie Center. And yeah, so lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you can probably tell I have a second person here as I'm I don't think I've ever hosted a reading while nursing at the same time, but here we are. So our next reader is Minda Honey. Uh, Minda Honey's essays on politics and relationships have appeared in Harper's Bazaar, the Los Angeles Review of Books, the Washington Post, the Guardian, the Oxford American, Teen Vogue, and Long Reads. Her work is featured in Burn It Down, Women Writing About Anger, A Measure of Belonging, Writers of Color on the New American South, and Sex and the Single Woman, 24 Writers Reimagine Helen Gurley Brown's cult classic. She is the editor of Black Joy at Reckon, the director of the BFA and Creative Writing Program at Spalding University, a relationship advice columnist for Leo Weekly in Louisville, and the founder of the Capsule Project, Taunt, an alt indie publication for Louisville that elevated the voices of the unaccounted during the height of the pandemic. Her debut memoir, The Heartbreak Years, Little A, October 2023, is a hilarious and intimate portrait of a Black woman finding who she is and who she wants to be one bad date at a time. And definitely check out Minda's book. Buy it in our bookshop. It is hilarious and wonderful. And Minda Honey, why are you so dang cute? We love you so much. Here she is. Please enjoy her
I'm
reading.
not the cute one. I'm being upstaged by this little one. How are you gonna out cute me at my own reading? Ban the books from children. But yes, I need to tweak that bio a little bit. I am the former director of Spalding's undergraduate BFA. Nina, those poems were beautiful. I just, for the first time this past holiday season, went back to the Philippines as an adult. I was born there, but we left before I turned 2. So, similar to you, I've had, feelings around that, around not speaking the language, around not knowing the country. But you have a lifetime to determine an identity. But you inspired me. I was like, oh, I should read from the section of my book where I discuss being a bluegrass Blackapina. I've never read from this section before, so special treat for the Kentucky Poetry Society Conference. After moving to Southern California, once while I was out in West Hollywood with a group of friends, a bouncer held my ID and asked me a variation of the "Do you date black boys?" question before handing my license back. There was no longer a white boyfriend by my side. In fact, I was out with all Black women, and yet the question hadn't gone away. The bouncer had read something other in my features. For most of my life, men have been treating my face like a carnival game. Let me guess what you are, calling me exotic, like a car, like a rare bird, like a tropical escape. His question was one I'd grown to hate. I took it as an affront, as men projecting anti-Blackness on me. I'm Black, why wouldn't I date Black men? But it's possible that the subtext of that question is more complicated than that. That is a question about value, theirs and mine. Somewhere in their history, not only was the question asker taught to desire lightness and certain features and textures, but some Black men were also taught they were unworthy of such women through their own experiences with colorism, featureism, and classism. If I rejected the bouncer, maybe in his mind, I would have been validating the narrative that he isn't worthy of women who look like me. But if I'd given him my number, I might have been reinforcing the narrative that privileges me solely based on my features and hurts other Black women by maintaining this harmful status quo. Neither scenario accounts for whether there was any actual attraction between this man and me or our general compatibility. And we weren't seated in a college classroom where we could tease out the fine threads tangled up in the question. We were out in front of a bar with a line of people behind me eager to get inside. So I told him yes, then lied. Sorry, I have a boyfriend. I'm a Black woman. This is a fact, and it is also shorthand. It's not always quick or simple for me to discuss my race and family. Yes, I am Filipino because my mother is Filipino, but like me, my mother's father is Black. She grew up in the Philippines without him. She's fair and takes after her mother, who is Filipino, but also Chinese. This means my mother is culturally Filipino, and she didn't experience Black culture until marrying my father and moving to Kentucky to be near his family. As a child, I didn't even know my mother was Black until I met her father. My dad tracked him down, which was pretty incredible feat in the 90s, a time before social media, before ancestry.com, and we road tripped to where he lived in California. My sisters and I slept in the back of the minivan and ate soggy sandwiches out of a cooler while my dad drove the family straight across the country, only stopping for gas and restroom breaks. My grandfather was so overcome with emotion when he saw my mother, they ushered us children out of the house. I only remember being in his presence briefly, and I never saw him again before he passed. This is a lot to explain to someone upon first meeting them. And frankly, not everyone I meet is deserving of that much information about me. So instead, when asked, I say, my mother is Filipino. I say, my mother is Filipino because when I say I am Filipino, the questions that feel like challenges to my identity come. No, I don't speak Tagalog. No, I've never gone back to the Philippines. I grew up in the South in an all-white neighborhood, and I was the only Black kid in my class until I switched schools in 4th grade. That was enough of a character builder without having to trot kids over to the globe and prove the Philippines was a real place. I've often felt Black and, in parentheses, and Filipino. Like Black is my primary identity and my Filipino-ness is ancillary to that. Like, because I didn't grow up immersed in Filipino or even typical Filipino-American culture, I can only claim being Filipino on a technicality. But just because my experience of being Filipino is niche doesn't make it any less valid. Growing up, my parents were friends with several families made up of military husbands, some Black, some white, with Filipino wives. My sisters and I had a whole pack of kids just like us to run with. We knew not to wear shoes in the house, to etch a cross in the rice before serving it, and that it was time to scatter whenever our moms got angry enough to shout at us in their language. Outside of that bubble, though, I rarely came across anyone with a similar background to my own. The bluegrass Blackapina contingency is a small one. In college, I learned that as a light-skinned mixed-race Black woman, I benefit from colorism. But in Filipino spaces, I experienced the other end of the colorism spectrum. Sometimes I wasn't acknowledged at all until it was clear I belonged to my mother. It was actually the support of other Filipino writers who readily accepted me as their own that deepened my grounding in Filipino culture. I'm often surprised to hear Filipinos I perceive as light skinned refer to themselves as being dark. To further complicate how I'm seen by others and how I see myself, periodic discourse flares up on Twitter about whether or not the rapper Saweetie is Black. Sweetie, like me, has a Black father and a Filipino mother. Less than 10 years ago, the back and forth on that same social media platform was about whether or not it was anti Black for someone to refer to themselves as biracial, a category that some view as separate and removed from being Black. I've been the subject of pages of posts by Black women on a discussion board about whether or not I'm allowed to be a voice on the experience of Black women as someone whose mother is Asian. While I have no interest in excusing the vitriol of those posts, I do understand that in a culture where Black women are underrepresented and underappreciated, light-skinned and multiracial Black women are overrepresented in the spotlight. I may not have grown up seeing many women who look like me on the cover of magazines, but I could count on them to be fetishized by the hot rappers of the era. Long hair, thick red bone, LA face, Oakland booty, with an ass like Serena and a face like Aaliyah, looking half black and Filipino. My entire aesthetic is a rap cliche. Seeing representation of yourself constantly sexualized isn't healthy, but it was one of the few confirmations of desirability I could turn to when it was mostly thin white women who were being positioned as worthy of attraction. Even if it's shallow, the shallow end of the pool can still be fun to splash around in when you're not allowed in the deep end. But after Dr. A's colorism course, I couldn't continue to grasp at rap lyrics to lift my ego without being consciously complicit in the messaging that tells Black women with darker skin that they are less desirable. It's more comfortable for me to train my attention on white women's privilege and speak in broad terms when discussing the lived experiences of Black women in America, as if they are all the same as my own, as if we are a single collective, but it's not more honest. It's taken me some time to piece together what it means to me to be Black and Filipino and how that meaning shifts based on where I'm at and who I'm with. And I've had to make peace with other people having their own assessments based on my appearance and their own thoughts about race and ethnicity. I've had no other choice. I can't keep the questions from coming. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Minda. So lovely. I love that. Such an incredible. I love that book so much. Like, and I love hearing you read it too. Okay, so I guess I'm next because Marianne's gonna go last. So I'm not gonna read my bio or introduce myself. I'm just gonna read some poems. So um, let's see. I'm gonna read a couple older poems from my book, and then I'm gonna read a couple new ones. And when I was texting with Marianne this morning, I was like, let's go spooky. It's like the spooky season. So I'm gonna start by reading a poem about a Filipino monster. Actually, I have a couple monster poems today. So this first one is Self-Portrait as Manananggal. And the Manananggal is a Philippine monster. She is known for like splitting herself in half. She's got bat wings. She's very similar to a vampire, and she has a reputation of sucking the life and souls out of folks in the night through their feet, through the soles of their feet. But yeah, this is my self-portrait, which, you know, as a Fil-Am Asian American woman, self-portrait is Manananggal. They ask me where I'm from, and the answer is hundreds of years old. Is that last name Spanish? From Spain? I sharpen my claws and answer carefully. Originally, I say, because colonization. They tell me they need to read up on that. When I split in two, they don't understand. They speak louder and slower. They explain what should be done instead. Where are you really from? Or, I don't see color. I leave my brown legs and ass in a secret place and rise above, meaning aerial, bat's eye view, inhaling through my nose and counting to 10. I come back and combine with myself. I fill in the bubble marked other. I use a hyphen. In the Philippines, they deter me with seasoning, salt, garlic, ash. They reflect me ghostly on billboards, erase my melanin with papaya soap and Photoshop. Here, I am repelled by questions, mispronunciation, fetish, and the phrase, I know how it feels to be. Okay, I think I'm going to read one more poem from my book, and then I'll read a couple new ones. This one is a ghazal, and I figured since it's Fil-Am History Month, why not bring a little Fil-Am history to, even though it's like not the cheeriest poem, but very important about like the history of Filipinos in the United States. I've been kind of like brushing up on some like Fil-Am history docs lately about like Larry Itliong and the United Farm Workers Union, and then like just like the turn of the century and the Filipino-American War and stuff. And it's like things that I never learned in school, and I feel like I'm very late to them in my 30s, late 30s, learning about these things that are like a part of my heritage. So I feel like I'm just like it's just like the tip of the iceberg, and I'm so excited to like learn more about it. So yeah, if you don't know about this history, it's a part of American history, and utilize Google. Look on PBS. There's like some really interesting stuff there. Okay, this is Hustle for Dog Eaters. Someone yelled, "That dog gonna end up in a pot of rice" at Margaret Cho, and she tells the story in her stand-up as a joke. When I waited tables, someone's dad ordered fried lice. Someone's brother made a dog meat and the egg rolls joke. In 1904, they shipped 1,200 Filipinos shivering in a train car from Seattle to St. Louis for a human zoo. No joke. They forced them to eat 20 dogs a week, a spectacle for the fairgoers, the butt of the joke, the root of the joke. Once a coworker barked like a dog because someone else ate Chinese food, but calm down, it was just a joke. When I told her it wasn't okay, she cried, called me a bully. She asked me in tears, "Danny, why can't you take a joke?" Okay, so I'm going to read two newer poems. Those two are from Two Brown Dots, which you can't see because it's blurred. Okay, there. Which you can get on the bookshop, the Red Spotted Newt bookshop page. Let's see. Okay, so these are just two short poems. One is from my YA novel in verse that I'm working on. Yeah, and it is kind of a monster poem. So, and I was like texting with Marianne about this weird monster called Tikbalang, who's like a man with a horse's head who smokes a cigar and gives tourists wrong directions to like make mischief, which I love every detail about that so much.
Nobody does monsters better than Filipinos.
Right? They are
There's an
so
entire
extra,
universe of bizarre monsters.
so specific and amazing. Yes, the cigar, like why? And it's like so vivid.
The
Yeah.
misleading of the tourists. Like Filipinos have been over tourism for
Yes, and colonization as well. I feel like the tourist is the colonizer, right? So yes, thank you. So this is about an Asian American character, and this is like a very like Asian American character in Lexington poem. And so the character's name is Howie Kim. So this is Howie Kim as Tikbalang. He's got this rubber horse mask from Halloween, but he wears it all the time. Laughs downtown in a low, rumbling echo, rude strangers on the street asking for directions. The horse knows where to go. Horse capital of the world, it says in big letters on the road by the airport. Howie Kim as Horse Howie as Tikbalang tells strangers to go left on first, knowing there's no first, it's short. He posts up in Triangle Park by the fountain steps, growing slippery with algae, smoking a blunt with his face still inside the horse mask. Howie Kim promises not until they wear their shirts inside out and ask politely for directions, not until they stop asking him where he's from. Only then will he be tamed. So yeah, that's the other thing about Tikbalang, which I thought was really funny, is like if you turn your shirt inside out and backwards and you are very polite, then he'll actually tell you where to go. But that's like the only way to, like bend to his will. Okay, I'm gonna read one more poem that I feel like is sort of a continuation and like thinking too about some of the things that Minda and Nina were talking about when it comes to identity and like answering these questions and sort of like the gatekeeping that comes with like, where are you from? Do you speak the language? Prove to me that you're really Filipino. Like all of that is so, yeah, Fil-Am, and so much the question that I feel like I'm always sort of grappling with. So this poem is kind of newish. This is called An Answer. How many times have I answered where I'm from in this town where I was born? The people want to know where I'm from before I was born. They want to know how I existed before this physical body covered in brown skin. Before I crowned from my mother's body, I was braised in broth. I was a sticky fly on a carabao's eyelash. I was a guava leaf traveling down a creek. I was a puff of smoke from my Lolo Mario's tricycle. I was a plastic bag of pandasol crumbs, a bottle of ash from Mount Pinatubo, a blurry photo of New Year fireworks. I was an electric fan blade, spinning and spinning the hot air around the room. All right. Thank you guys. I love reading with y'all. We should do this all the time, or at least more often. Okay, so our last reader is Marianne Chan. I am a huge fan, huge Marianne Chan fan. Love her new book, Leaving Biddle City. But yeah, let me read her official bio. So Marianne Chan grew up in Stuttgart. Am I saying it right? Germany. I don't know how to say German things. Okay, in Lansing, Michigan. After she earned her BA in English from Michigan State University, she went on to study poetry at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where she earned her MFA. Marianne is the author of Leaving Biddle City, Saraband Books 2024, and All Heathen, Saraband Books 2020, which was the winner of the 2021 GLCA New Writers Award in Poetry, the 2021 Ohayana Book Award in Poetry, and the 2022 Association for Asian American Studies Book Award for Outstanding Achievement. Her poems have appeared in Poetry Magazine, New England Review, Kenyon Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, and elsewhere. Between 2017 and 2019, she served as poetry editor for Split Lit Magazine. She lives in Norfolk, where she teaches poetry and nonfiction at Old Dominion University. Please welcome Marianne Chan.
Yay, thank you so much. Thank you, Danny. I was just like, God, Danny is such a badass with her baby strapped to her or wiggling around as she's reading bios. I am so nervous all of a sudden having to read after your amazing readings, and also just thinking about sort of the themes that have come up. I was like, maybe I should change what I wanted to read because I feel like there's so many ideas here that like inspire me and also like that I feel like show up in my own work. So first of all, I just want to say that I feel like a tad like an imposter here because I never quite lived in Kentucky, but I did live in Cincinnati, which is just across the border, and that like whole Ohio Kentucky border still feels like one of my homes. Um, and also my books are published from Saraband Books, which is a Louisville based. And I'm saying Louisville wrong, and that's how you know that I'm not from Kentucky, but a Louisville based publisher, and they're amazing. And I think, are they doing anything with the conference this year, Danny?
No, but like the publishing panel that you're on, we have like some multiple Saraband authors. So yeah,
Oh, okay,
we love Saraband, and Kristen Miller was our keynote last year.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, so I feel like a Kentuckian for all those reasons. But I'm really happy to be here with you guys today. So I'm going to read one long poem from my second collection of poetry, Leaving Biddle City. And this book started out as a project where I wanted to kind of mythicize my hometown, which is Lansing, Michigan. And it really just started off as, me thinking that Lansing, Michigan is in a place that's often mythicized, right? And so that was my project. But it ended up also being a book about alienation and loneliness and friendship and home and what it means to leave a place behind. And I began working on this book in 2020 during lockdown. And I wanted this book to be about my experience growing up in this sort of mythicized version of my hometown. But because I was writing this during the time of, increased Asian hate and also racial justice protests, I started thinking a lot about what it meant for me to kind of grow up in mostly white spaces in a mostly white community. And a big question that I asked while writing this book is how do marginalized people internalize their marginalization? And I wanted to kind of explore the nuances of that. But in terms of the poem that I'm about to read, another thing that I wanted to bring to this book is a kind of celebration of Filipino communities in small towns. And I remember I had a conversation with Danny a while ago about how I wish that I'd grown up in California because there's like Filipinos everywhere there. And I feel like I would be a different person if I hadn't grown up in like a mostly white town. But then Danny said something about how like these sort of Filipino communities in these small towns often are so cohesive because they're the only ones there, right? And I agreed with that. And so in this book, I interviewed 4 women in my community in Lansing, asking them about their lives, and with their permission, I wrote this longer poem called Filipino Universe, that's written from the we perspective and incorporates their voices. And I wanted to kind of blend their voices with my voice and blend their voices sort of together. First of all, just to have a chance to spend time with their stories, but to also kind of think of the Filipino story as not simply like monolithic. It's not one story, right? It's not simply a story of kind of colonization and migration and oppression and living in the diaspora, but that it's a beautiful kind of rich story that's existed long before those histories. And so I kind of bring in also some kind of pre-colonial history from this book, Barangay, by William Henry Scott. I wanted to also mention that this poem is very much inspired by Robin Cost Lewis's To the Realization of Perfect Helplessness. So sorry, that was a long introduction, but this poem is called Filipino Universe, and it should take me about 10 minutes to read. And one more thing that I wanted to mention is that this poem includes one of my favorite Filipino pastimes, which is the electric slide. So this is Filipino Universe. I forget sometimes that we are ancient and holy, that we walked across land bridges with Pleistocene mammals to find shelter on an island. At least someone once imagined that we did, and this story is a part of us, myth with mammoths and mastodon. Before the Spanish arrived, broad faces and flat noses were beautiful in our universe. We molded our babies' skulls using rods bound to their foreheads. If our skulls were unmolded, we were called undu, which meant tight-packed or overstuffed. We are undu now, overstuffed, our heads round, our bodies heavy as we circle one another, as we dance in a straight line. I think about you dancing the electric slide, our synchronized movements. When you means I, everything multiplies. When you means we, the branches grow limes on a Midwestern tree with surprising ferocity, not limoncitos, but big universes of green. When we means we, it is both truth and lie. Do we want the same things? Notice our synchrony. In astronomy, synchrony refers to a celestial body completing one full revolution around another, while the body being orbited completes a full rotation about its axis. It is like being here with you, happenstance. It is a dance, little bulbs of universe swinging on a grapevine. It is the grapevine. See me turning as I circle around you. Do I ever see your face? And we move, we migrate, we dance. We wanted out. We wrote letters and married men who lived across the ocean, men who lived in snow. We rode a plane to be with them. We worried they would kill us. We wore our jeans in bed at night because that was what the embassy told us to do. We wore our jeans in bed. We kept our passports in our back pocket. We were ready to run if something happened, if the men we married were to become killers. Some of us were given life insurance. Our bodies were sent back to the Philippines because of the husbands we had. We knew to wear our jeans in bed, hold our passports close. Our husbands called their friends on the phone. I don't know what to do with my wife. She's wearing jeans in bed. We laugh about it now. We are lucky when our husbands are not killers. We are lucky our husbands talk to people with black hair at Meijer while shopping. Our husbands ask them if they're Filipino. We ask our husbands, do you think every person with black hair is a Filipino? And they say, I just want you to have friends. Our husbands say, if you want something, and we learn to love them. Inside our bones, an ache. The ache escapes me when I am around you, when I am you, you inside me, when we are we, here together, ourselves forgotten, dancing in a straight line, the hustle, turu-turu, Cupid shuffle, cha-cha slide. We knew one day we'd become singular selves. We already knew as children the possibilities of distance, our mothers away from their mothers, our lulas die, and we are years and years away, centuries, an expansive field of time. Years of light, light years away. Remember our years of light? We cradled our skulls, sculpting ourselves into something new. We decorated our teeth and bodies. We grew our hair long. We prided in great masses of hair, oil sweet scented. We ran our fingers over our children's scalps, oiling their skulls, wrapping their heads in cloth. We oiled our daughters' feet and legs. We kissed their feet and legs. We bathed ourselves in warm water. We smelled of sesame oil. We appeared slick from the water onto the sand, legs emerging so that we could run if needed, run anywhere. And we learned how to hold ourselves and each other, to restore function, relieve ache. We leave our island to become therapists for each other. And I couldn't tell you what waded across the ocean, where the branches grow fruit on a Midwestern tree with surprising ferocity. And I couldn't tell you what Michigan was. We had no idea. We just knew at the time in the early 90s, the Detroit Pistons were the champions. So we said we wanted to go there to watch Isaiah Thomas. We drove everywhere, all over Michigan, then some parts of Arkansas, then Missouri. It was adventure. All our income we gave to the telephone company because we called home all the time. Our first assignment was in the Flint area. We traveled alone. Most of our clients were old, in their 60s, Medicare patients. One time I met a patient who didn't want to work with me because they or their father fought against the Filipinos in a war. I can't remember which one. I said I was not born then. We ended up working together. He was apologetic. I told him, no, it doesn't affect me because my conscience is clear. We did not cause the war. We learned that as long as you have gas in your car and a map and it's daylight, ask directions from gas stations. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have cell phone. The only thing that gave us company was a Rand McNally, a big book of maps. That was the only life we knew we had to do. And when it snows, we know how to navigate the roads, to shovel our driveway. We pave a way, pump our brakes over ice. And don't you remember during the war, petrified of snakes, it was our job to feed the chickens in the chicken coops far away from the cave where we lived. This one day we were singing, hopping and singing and going our merry way, and then we stopped. The chicken was gone. In its place was a huge python, and the reason why the python was in the chicken coop is because he swallowed the chicken and couldn't get out. We ran back to our grandfather and said, the chicken, the chicken. And he said, what happened to the chicken? And we said, gone, gone. We couldn't talk. He had to shake us. And we never found out what happened to the snake, but the chicken was gone. The snake swallowed it. We were petrified. Here in Michigan, we planted garlic with our flowers because we saw a garter snake once. And so we had to plant garlic among the flowers and vegetables everywhere. The first year that we were here, we could not afford to buy a washer and dryer, so we bought a washing machine, and Mila hung the clothes in the basement, and then Tony bought a 10-inch TV from his student. We didn't have two nickels to rub together, okay? We were the only ones working while he goes to school. When we were in the Philippines, we had 5 dogs, a cat, a white parrot, a green parrot, and 2 parakeets, and when it's feeding time, our house sounded like a zoo. The dog is barking, the cat is meowing, the parrots are yakking because they want food too. But when we arrived here, we couldn't afford a pet. We got home from work one day and Tony Jr. reached into his flannel jacket and pulled out a garter snake. And we were petrified of snakes, and so we ran upstairs, and Tony was, of course, in our bedroom studying. We said, you're coming with us or not? And he said, where are you going? And we said, to a pet shop to order a dog. We could not afford to buy a dryer, but we paid $350 to buy a dog. Now figure that one out. But then we could just imagine him marching down the stairs and that stupid snake going around our ankles. We're petrified of snakes. Think how big the python was, big as a house. And sometimes in the universe of the community center, we create a circle with our bodies, and one of us dances in the middle of it. Sometimes she moves her arms into the shape of an ocean. Sometimes she hugs herself, holding herself, shy and afraid. Sometimes she lifts her hands up and gyrates. Sometimes she rotates all the way around so that she can see all our faces. And in a universe that we perceive as almost flat, we flatten our heads, broaden our noses, and we make circles. We shape balls of dough into pandesal, salt bread, from the Spanish colonial pandesuelo flour bread, but softer, doughier, better for dipping in morning coffee. We ball our hands into fists, and sometimes feeling unable to fight the python as big as the house, we fight our children. We're hard on them, then loving, then hard on them, then loving. Sometimes we circle each other in chismis, and then we become tired of all the chismis, and we go back to making bread and meatballs and leaving round fruit for our ancestors. The chismis satisfied our need for story, but only for a short while, for what we craved were storytellers, a circle of story, a story told in circles, a story of circles. We turned on the karaoke machine and we sang sad songs. We danced the electric slide. We worshiped Isaiah Thomas. And in a universe that we perceive as almost flat, flat as a trampoline, sometimes we ball our hands into fists and rub the backs of our children before bed. And they massage our tired feet and they press hard. Sometimes it hurts us, but we forgive them. We write poems that go round and round. We drive round and round. We look at maps trying to find ourselves inside a grid. We mix together sweet rice flour and a shredded coconut, roll them into balls, fry them, and prick them with skewers. We roll small pieces of dough, fry them, and add sesame seeds. We suck on the round seeds of lanzones because roundness is medicinal, roundness is wealth and good fortune, and seeds are both endings and beginnings. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Marianne, thank you. This is so beautiful and like how do you write such a long poem? It's so like epic and gorgeous. It's like a novel of a poem. So lovely. Thank you. And also like pythons are terrifying. Like they get so big and they eat people. Like and chickens, right?
Yeah, that was the story that this one of my mom's friends told me about growing up in the Philippines and growing up during the war. And yeah, it's a terrifying story about like wanting to go feed your chickens and then just finding a big python there. But yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you all. Yeah, thank you all so much for being a part of this reading. It's yeah, I'm so excited for the weekend and to start off this conference or this Saturday morning with you all. And I hope you all were able to catch Glennis Redmond's beautiful lecture and reading last night. We'll be posting it on YouTube too. It was recorded if you missed it. It was gorgeous. So I just have to thank our sponsors real quick. And I wanted to mention that the new fall 2024 issue of Pegasus, the KSPS Literary Journal, is out. This issue features poems by Stan Ratliff, Bill Breimer, Jessica Bentley, and others. Also, the adult contest winners, the Chaffin Cash and Grand Prix contest winners, are published there in an interview with Alfonso Zapata, who is teaching a workshop tomorrow morning. And then there are also reviews in this issue of Pegasus, works by Dorian Hairston, B. Elizabeth Beck, Sandra Ripito, John Reynolds Secor, and Katerina Stoikova. Lots of KSPS folks in there. And the Kentucky State Poetry Society is thankful for the following sponsors for their support. Accents Publishing is a Kentucky-based press whose mission is to promote brilliant voices and to foster an exchange of literature among different world cultures and languages. We also wanted to highlight the Poet's Guide to Publishing by press founder and KSPS future candidate for president for 2025, Katerina Stoikova. This guide is designed to meet you where you are in your book creation or publication process and provides a mix of theoretical materials and practical assignments to demystify and ground the publishing of your work. Katerina is amazing and like is such an incredible like community leader in Lexington and around Kentucky. So I'm certain that that book is amazing if you are interested in publishing. Additionally, we're thankful for the support from Spalding University's Naslin Mann Graduate School of Writing, the James Baker Hall Foundation, University Press of Kentucky, and we are also two more, sorry. We're also sponsored by the Red Spotted Newt Books, which is a bookstore in Hazard. We encourage our attendees to visit or use their bookshop page for books by the presenters. Get The Heartbreak Years, get Leaving Biddle City, get All Heathens, like support these Kentucky writers. And also like, of course you're gonna get those things. These readings are incredible. So lastly, this conference is supported by a grant from the Kentucky Humanities. Please be sure to fill out the Kentucky Humanities survey by the end of your conference. So you just have to do it one time. Your experience matters. We got this grant. We need these surveys for reasons. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning. The next event is the first workshop with Deidre White. It starts at 11:15, and it was so lovely to read with you all this morning. Thank you all so much. Yes, Deidre White's amazing. I know. All right. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.